So ever wonder how some copy just grabs you and makes you want to whip out your wallet? We're diving deep into the AWAI method today. Let's see if their approach is the secret sauce to writing that kind of copy. The kind that doesn't just sit there but makes things happen.
We're talking going full-on Sherlock Holmes, magnifying glass out, on their modules, their transcripts, even their pricing guides, trying to crack the code of what makes this whole system tick.
It's like we're handing you the keys to the treasure chest, but instead of doubloons and pieces of eight, it's, well, hopefully, a super successful copywriting career waiting inside.
Big question is, though, is it the treasure you're looking for?
That's the thing, right?
And one of the first things that AWAI really hits hard is this idea that when it comes down to it, copywriting isn't about selling. It's about solving.
Yeah.
They say the best copywriters, the ones raking it in, they see themselves more as problem solvers for their readers.
Which, when you really think about it, makes a lot of sense. I mean, who actually likes feeling like they're being sold to? But everyone's got problems they want an answer to.
Exactly. It's like that vet equipment website you were working on,
Yeah.
right? Remember, they were all about durability this and reliability that.
Yeah, all the important sounding stuff.
Which is important, sure, but it wasn't really speaking to what their ideal customer, those vets, were really struggling with.
It wasn't until we really dug in and found that little nugget about welded seams
Right.
that for vets dealing with, well, the messier side of things, that seemingly small detail was huge.
Oh, yeah.
AWAI is onto something with this whole problem-solving angle for sure. But how do you actually do that? Like, how do you put it into practice when you're staring at a blank page?
Well, AWAI gives you a kind of roadmap for that, the four
Right.
Ps. Promise, picture, proof, and push. They really break each one down, showing you how to use them to craft copy that converts.
Okay, so walk me through those Ps. What's the AWAI spin on each one?
So promise, that's all about grabbing attention right out of the gate. You want to highlight a clear benefit for the reader. Think like those weight loss ads, right? Lose 10 pounds in 10 days, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a hook, right? It grabs you.
Exactly. Makes you want to know more. Which brings us to picture. Now you're painting a vivid picture in the reader's mind, helping them practically see themselves experiencing that benefit you just promised. Like with that weight loss ad, they might show images of people looking fit and happy, just loving their new bodies.
And it's funny how that works, because suddenly I am picturing myself rocking that swimsuit. I'm feeling awesome, and it's all thanks to whatever they're selling. It's like they've planted this little seed of, hey, it could be you.
And that's what AWI wants you to do. Make the solution feel real, achievable for the person reading. But you can't just be slinging empty promises, which is where proof comes in clutch.
Gotta back it up with the receipts.
You got it. Testimonials, case studies, hard data, anything that backs up what you're saying builds that trust factor.
Okay, and then push.
The final nudge, right, getting them to actually take that action.
I've seen so many ads, even websites, where they nail those first three Ps, but then that push, it's like they tripped at the finish line, they get all salesy and aggressive, and it's just a total turnoff.
And that's where another big AWAI principle comes in. Write like you talk. Ditch the stuffy, formal language. They're all about that conversational tone.
It's like that B2B website I was telling you about. It was so formal, so jargony, like it was written by robots for robots.
Right.
But as soon as we injected a little personality, a bit more of that natural, human touch.
People started responding. Because at the end of the day, people buy from people, even online. And AWAI drives this home by contrasting that classic sales approach, which, let's be real, can be kind of faceless, impersonal, with what they call the charismatic approach.
Okay, charismatic approach, now that I got to hear more about. So is it about, like, being super charming and charismatic in your writing?
It's more about making that connection with the reader, letting your authentic self come through in the writing. Like, think about how Oprah does it.
Oh, yeah.
She's relatable, she's real, speaks directly to her audience.
You wouldn't trust a robot to sell you a self-help book, but when Oprah's recommending something, you listen.
And that feeling, that connection, that's what AWAI is saying, really drives conversions.
So we're talking about connection, right? Authenticity, making that real human-to-human link, even if it's through the written word. How does AWAI say copywriters can actually do that?
Well, they're big on storytelling. They even have a name for it, the power of one. It's all about how much impact even just one single well-told story can have on your copy.
It's funny you mention that. I was just working with this client on their About Us page.
Yeah.
It was so boring at first, just a list of their accomplishments, like a resume or something.
Right.
But then we wove in the story about the company's founder, her struggles, her big aha moment, all that. And it totally changed. It wasn't just a company anymore, you know? It was a story you felt like you were part of.
Exactly. NWAI uses this great example. A woman, her husband loses his job.
Ooh, that's rough.
Right. Relatable fear for a lot of people.
Big time. It makes you think, what if that happened to me?
And here's where the power of one kicks in. Instead of freaking out, this woman, she's totally calm.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And why? Because
Yeah.
she built this whole freelance copywriting career on the side. And boom, suddenly learning this skill doesn't just sound smart, it sounds like a lifesaver.
Yeah. Wow. That is powerful. You're not just selling copywriting skills, you're selling peace of mind, security,
Right.
like control over your own destiny almost.
Exactly. The story, it bypasses all that logical stuff and goes right for the emotional connection.
Hmm.
But it's not just any story, right? It's got to be the right story told the right way.
So how do you make sure your story hits the mark? How do you keep people on the edge of their seats, dying to know what happens next?
So that's where AWAI brings in this thing called the curiosity gap. Remember that Andrew Davis keynote we were talking about?
Yeah.
He talked about how he sold, get this, thousands of dollars worth of exploding watermelons online.
The exploding watermelons, I have to admit, that definitely got my attention.
See, he hooked people in. He didn't just say, I'm going to blow up some fruit, right? It was a mystery. You had to know more.
It's like those clickbait headlines. You know you should look away, but you can't help yourself.
That's the curiosity gap in action. But then AWAI, they take it even further because they say even when you've got someone's attention, there's this natural resistance to sales messages. They call it the theory of resistance.
Which makes sense, right? We've all been hit with so many bad sales pitches, we're practically immune.
Exactly. So AWAI says you got to anticipate that, address it head on, but not by fighting it, more like understanding where it's coming from.
So instead of going straight for the hard sell, you're trying to break down those walls a little, acknowledging their doubts.
Right. It's like you're saying, hey, I get it. You've heard it all before. But what if I told you? And then you lead them down the path, building that trust as you go.
It's really interesting how AWAI gets into the psychology of it all.
Oh, for sure.
Which, speaking of psychology, they also talk a lot about the emotional side of copywriting. They had that whole list, 37 emotions that copywriters should try to tap into.
It's a gold mine, that list. And what I find so interesting is that it goes way beyond the obvious stuff, like fear, greed. Those are powerful, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But AWAI is pushing for something deeper.
So, like, instead of just trying to scare people into buying a security system, you might focus on their desire to protect their family,
There you go.
which is so much more powerful when you think about it.
Right. Or instead of just the thrill of winning the lottery, you tap into that feeling of hope, possibility.
It's like they're encouraging a smarter, more nuanced way of using emotions in copy. It's not about being manipulative, it's about understanding what makes people tick.
And that's what lets you write copy that really connects, that makes them feel something.
Okay, so we've covered a ton about the AWAI method.
Yeah.
Solving problems, telling those stories that really grab people, even getting kind of deep into the psychology of the reader.
Right.
But for someone listening right now who's like, okay, this all sounds amazing, but how does this translate into, actually making a living as a copywriter? What would AWAI say to that?
That's what I like about them. They don't shy away from the real world stuff. They give you a ton on the business side of being a copywriter.
Oh, that's good. So like finding clients, setting rates, all of that.
All of it. Contracts, everything. They walk you through the whole freelance thing, building your portfolio, even managing your money.
Smart.
Yeah. And they even help you figure out like what kind of copywriting you want to do, what niche you fit into.
Oh, interesting. So you can figure out if you're more into like website copy or sales letters, emails, all that.
Exactly. They want you to have the skills, obviously. That's a given. But they also want you to have the business sense to actually make it in this crazy world of copywriting.
It's like they're not just teaching you to fish, they're giving you the boat, the rod, showing you the best fishing spots, the whole 9 yards.
Love that analogy.
Yeah.
But with all this talk about like technique and strategy and all that,
Yeah.
it's easy to forget one of the most important things AWAI talks about, the human element.
We touched on that a bit, the right, like you talk thing, tapping into emotions. But it sounds like you're saying there's more to it.
There is. Because AWAI's whole philosophy, it all comes down to relationships. Building relationships with your readers,
Hmm.
getting them their needs, and offering solutions that actually make their lives better.
So it's bigger than just getting them to click buy now.
Way bigger.
Hmm.
It's about making a connection, building that trust that lasts.
Like those amazing customer service experiences where
Yeah.
you feel heard, not just like a number.
Exactly. That's what AWAI wants you to create with your copy. It's about shifting from selling to serving.
I love that. So for someone listening who's thinking, this is speaking to my soul, but they're still not 100% sold on the AWAI method, what's the one question they should ask themselves to figure out if it's the right fit?
I'd say ask yourself, am I truly interested in people? Because the best copywriters, the ones who really kill it, they're not just wordsmiths, you know? They're fascinated by people, what makes them pick, what they want, what keeps them up at night.
Mhm.
If that's you, then AWAI could be your golden ticket.
Like they're saying, here's the key to persuasion, but use it wisely,
Right.
ethically. Make a difference with it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the AWAI method, I think it comes down to this. If you're drawn to this idea of using words to connect with people, solve problems, maybe even make the world a slightly better place along the way,
Yeah.
then this might be the path for you.
And remember, the learning never stops. Keep writing, experimenting, keep getting better.
Because who knows, maybe you'll be the one inspiring the next generation of copywriting superstars. Until then, happy writing.